Welcome to the second episode of the Archive Podcast. You're here with myself, Dan Ebbs.
And me, Joel
and your boy
Harry.
Joel Harris. That's a good
We're
image, bro.
back. We made it back.
Yeah. I'm leaving all that first 10 minutes of clip in as well, so...
Are you? Oh,
Yeah.
damn,
Anyway, right. Top.
Happy bank holiday, everyone, for a start. It
Mhm.
is... What is the bank holiday? I'm going to check on my phone now. Because I know it's like Memorial Day in America, but it's just spring bank holiday. Happy spring bank holiday, everybody. Even though
Still,
every
though,
day is like a bank holiday.
stay indoors.
Stay indoors.
Protect the NHS, save lives.
Exactly that.
Exactly. Send a good message. Start this podcast off with a good message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're about to slay everything we go into now. This is going to be the...
I tell you what, let's reminisce on times pre-lockdown, right? I want to know your top 3 places, top eateries to start this podcast off on a light note. Top 3 eateries, go.
Right. The first, should we go one each and then two, or we go listen all three?
Just go all 3, bro.
Right. So probably, for some reason, burgers are on my mind at the minute, and I'm gonna actually make sure I get the right name of the one. So the number one up there is Ooey Diner. If you've ever been to Ooey Diner, it's in Bristol. It was me and my buddy Sam Perkins. So we went there, ordered, and decided to drive on top of Clifton Downs and eat what was an absolute monstrosity of animal fries and like a triple pat burger. And I think I had a Milky Bar milkshake, and he had strawberry, and it went down an absolute treat. Polished every last bit of it off. That was the first one. And then got beef. Then I think it was, that's when we went to. Got beef, absolutely unreal. Halloumi fries, on point. And then, third one will have to be the sushi bar in Cathays. I don't know the name of it, but it is unreal. I haven't had fresh sushi in ages.
Waitrose are pretty good. Waitrose are pretty good for sushi, mind. If you want to scratch that.
Hang on.
No, if you want to scratch that sushi itch, I get it, right? I get it.
Right.
Sushi.
Bro. Waitrose,
They do a half decent roll, bro.
That just sums up the people we are. I shop in Lidl in the bakery section with my pan au chocolat with my little French cap on with a baguette stick. And then we've got...
I don't shop in Waitrose, bro. I do not shop in Waitrose. I don't know about that life.
Waitrose Shopper 101. Oh. Right, let me...
It's got to be a Sainsbury's jaunt, you know?
No. Right, so...
Mm-hmm.
Getting on topic with the actual track of the podcast is we were talking about, we've had a lot of little discussions off air on where we wanted to take this. And I think we're going to talk about actually monitoring progress during lockdown. So when we're in the gym, it's easy to monitor progress because it tends to be weight on the bar, like how much work we do in a session and all that. But now we haven't got that easy metric to track. People worry then, are they making progress or not? They monitor it by the total amount of workouts they're doing in a week. They're like, I've trained 8 times this week. I've done a double session. Like, I smashed it every day. Then you've got some people that are monitoring progress through, like, I burnt so many calories doing this workout. And then there's some people that are monitoring progress, like, I've made this exercise harder by like changing the angle or something. And we just wanted to touch a little bit on how we feel like you should monitor the progress to make sure that we are staying on track, because progression drives progression. If you see yourself getting better and see yourself doing more and more, it tends to be that you bounce off that and feed off that energy and you carry on progressing.
What I will say is, I touch on what you mentioned, but burning calories in a workout, it's like something we've discussed, obviously. It's not really an accurate measure of progress, or really should be considered a measure considered anyway, because there's a massive discrepancy between how accurate these trackers are. Typically, everyone is tracking on track. They're like, I see a lot of, like, everyone who does a HIIT workout, we won't go into that, or like a strength training workout, they do a class or they do some yoga or something like that. I always see them post, like, they see, like, you get a screenshot of the workout summary, and then you get like the picture of the Fitbit in the back, or like, oh, I just burned 700 calories. Yeah, that's all good, but there's such a discrepancy within, like, how accurate those trackers are. Do you know? They don't behave like the same, like, every session. Like, you won't see like trends and stuff, and they just really aren't that great for tracking calories. Like, there's definitely better options. It's like using them to track your entire daily, how many calories you burn, really, when you could just use, like, I don't know, steps or something as a better measure. Like, I just think those
Like,
activity trackers are just not very accurate in general.
I think they're good in the sense that they force people to work a little bit harder.
Yeah,
So
it's always
if
that intent
someone
perspective, yeah.
if someone's looking at their watch and they're like, I'm on 400 calories, let's keep pushing, I
Hmm.
really enjoy that metric because it's something that they can monitor, they can see it, and they're like, right, I want to burn a bit more, I want to burn a bit more. And sometimes it drives that effort level because you're seeing like an actual metric that you're like, right, I need to keep pushing this.
I
Where
get it. Whereas if you look at
then the
trends,
problem becomes,
go
go
on.
on.
I'm just gonna
So
say, like, if you look at trends in heart rate, you kind of see what your fitness level is, and if you just use heart rate as a bit of a, this is just my thoughts, or just like a little thought off the bat, like, you just look at your heart rate. Oh, I probably go a bit, like, got a bit more left, and then I
yeah,
probably go a bit harder. Um, you just look at that, like, if you're looking at that, like, intra-session, like, kind of like, ooh, then that's probably a little bit, like, better. But
and I feel like we're going to touch on. I want to touch on the heart rate topic because tracking heart rate is going to be crucial to monitor the adaptations we get in. So we get certain adaptations in certain heart rate training zones. And I think at the same time, though, going back to the fitness trackers and calorie tracking, the problem I see is people train. So they're doing their, say they're doing their HIIT class or they're doing their strength session, and they walk in and they see that they burn, say, 500 calories in a workout. They then go, "Oh, that's 500 calories I can eat back."
mm,
And if that's the metric you're tracking to eat back your calories, then you should be working out for something a bit better. For a start, a lot of the calorie calculators online are including exercise.
yeah, you put
So
your
if,
activity level in there.
yeah, you put your activity level in, and if you do a big workout, then they're like, right, I get to eat back, say, 600 calories. For a start, that's already included in a lot of trackers. So you eating back those calories is probably going to change your deficit or change your like actual physique goal that you're heading towards based on how often you do it. And also the calorie trackers like drastically overestimate the amount of calories you burn. So if you have included your calories without having the activity factored into it, you're still probably going to be overeating a lot more calories than you've burned during that workout. So that could be a reason why you've not seen the changes you want. It's not because you're not training hard enough and you need to burn more calories. It's because you're factoring those calories that you've burned in your actual workout when in your eating day, when in reality it's already been accounted for, or you've overestimated the amount you've burnt.
Yeah,
So those that do actually use a Fitbit and Apple Watch to track their calories, make sure that you're not eating these back. So that comes down to you've already factored in the amount of calories you need to be eating on a daily basis to achieve your goal. Stick to that number.
yeah,
If you are getting really hungry, you might be underestimating a little bit. Track trends in the like scale in your physique to see what's happening, but make sure that if you are tracking your calories, just use it as a bit of a loose metric during your workouts to like push yourself a little bit further. Don't eat them back and then wonder why you're not achieving your goals. because
And
you've
if you're still getting hungry, maybe look at the food choices you're making rather than calories itself, because a lot of foods are going to have different effects on your appetite. You know, some are a little bit more satiating, some are not. Like you can eat like a fairly large density of calories and still be hungry afterwards, whereas you could eat something that's a little bit less calorie dense and maybe have that, you know, hormonal response to tell you that you're still hungry. Do you get me?
yeah.
And
So
I I just think eating back your calories just adds a little bit more confusion to the pot when it's not needed. You can just use, you know, your food tracking app as a means to just track what food you're using and what food you're eating, and then use the training as a separate sort of like measure to track. So you kind of like got two avenues that you just kind of need to bounce back and forth. You don't need to blend the two together. It just adds a little bit more confusion to the pot. Do you get me?
yeah, and what I would say along those lines, if you're using MyFitnessPal to track your calories and your calories consumed, is really good. You can input barcode scanning, so it takes the element of like typing things out. If it's not on there, you can input it 100% accurate from the food packaging itself, so you don't really need to worry about um, going through the process of adding everything up yourself. It's all tracked on there. But one thing I will say is, if you're using MyFitnessPal to determine your calories, um, I would probably looking elsewhere rather than MyFitnessPal. They do give quite low calories because they give you the option to burn back or like burn back your calories from your workouts. And like we said, they like drastically overestimated a lot of the time.
I would
So if
never
you're
look. I would never look to an app to give me insight on what amount of calories I should be eating. I would do one of those, you know, TDE calculators, get that, start there as an arbitrary figure, and then kind of like measure it weekly and see where you've got to adjust and maybe pull 50 calories here and there, depending on your responses to your current macros. Do you get me? So it's going to be a trial and error period when you start tracking, or when, you know, you've started a new plan or whatever. There's going to be a little bit of a trial period where you're just feeling things out, and you're not going to get, you might be lucky, you might get the exact loss or gain that you want straight away, but it isn't always going to be like that. You may have to sort of like pull calories here and there and kind of, do you get me?
yeah, because all these calculators are an estimate. So the amount of calories you burn in a workout is an estimate. The amount of calories that you calculate on your TD calculator is going to be an estimate. So what we look for is an estimate as a starting guideline. So you've used, say, a TD calculator online. It said you need to eat 1,500 calories in a day to lose weight. You then eat that and you get a grasp. You eat that for 2 weeks. You get a grasp of what that number's doing for you. So if you're eating that number and staying the same over the 2 week period, guess what? You're in a maintenance, like you're on your maintenance calories. But then at the same time, if you're going for a calorie deficit and you've hit those maintenance calories and you're like, oh, why am I losing weight? That's because it's only an estimate. You've got to do your own initiative in where you need to go from this point. So they give you a good starting figure that you need to tweak slightly to make sure that it fits your individual needs of, this is the goal I need, rather than just relying totally on an estimate.
Yeah, I think the drawing point here is like no sort of calculation is going to serve you specifically. You you will have to kind of like feel it out and find your own, you know, because ultimately that trial and error period with the calories is essential. You're never going to hit that sort of, you know, number that the TD calculator gives you and get exactly what you want out of it. And I think tracking is a pretty much essential part of sort of like body composition, like changes, like if you want to gain and lose weight, kind of keeps you accountable. Like I've seen, the portion size method, and but ultimately I think tracking is the best method.
Yeah, and there's the arguments for tracking can cause like problems with food, and you can get too caught up on the details and it can become an obsession and then it becomes unhealthy. But then I think some people might fall into that
Depends
category.
with the way you look at it. If you do get, obviously with anything, there's that obsession factor, and it's like I know it's a bit of a touchy subject, but eating disorders, like people develop those with just eating intuitively and just eating rather than like tracking. So you think that tracking your food is going to make you any more obsessed? Obviously, with an eating disorder, you need to touch on other areas first. Like there's a psychological intervention needed there. However, I don't believe that tracking nutrition is a spell for disaster and it's going to make you obsessed. It'll definitely make you consider what you're putting in your mouth a little bit more, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I think the people with eating disorders and stuff shouldn't be taking advice from like two people that are PTs. We're not overly qualified on nutrition. We know the basics of it,
No.
but at the end of the day, we're giving quite simple guidelines when nutrition is there's a lot more that goes into play in nutrition.
Yeah.
But I think if you're trying to take advice from someone when you have an eating disorder with like, oh, I need to track my calories and that, you need to like address the problem first of why you feel the need, like why you've got the eating
I
disorder.
think I
And
drew.
then
Well,
with that, I think the majority of people that are listening and the majority of people that are looking for advice are just looking to better themselves slightly. They haven't got a problem with it. They won't develop any like extreme eating disorders from tracking calories, and that tracking calories then is probably going to be the best way to gain an understanding of what's in food. Everyone overestimates calories naturally, so they'll underestimate. So they'll say if they're eating like a normal day, you go, how many calories do you think that? They'll go, oh, probably like 1,200, when in reality it's more like 1,600. So if they can gain a better understanding of what's in their food, then maybe after a period of tracking for a longer duration, they can move into more intuitive eating, because they look at like say a portion of rice and they go, right, I know how many calories is in this, I know how much I can get away with, and then they can make better decisions throughout. But I feel like that period of tracking where you gain an understanding of the
what's in
macro
food?
breakdown of food and the calorie consumption and what you can get away with eating and what a normal portion size looks like for you is going to be ideal for 99% of people.
I do agree that there is an area of like cause of anxiety or stress when it comes to tracking. It's like if you look at your numbers and your sugar or fat content is a little bit high, I wouldn't worry about that to an extent where I wouldn't look at that and think, oh, my sugar's a little bit high, but as long as you're still in your realm of calories and give or take like 5 or 10 grams on the macronutrient spectrum, or even if you're still in your calorie goal and you're eating, relatively good food, you're still getting micronutrients from vegetables and stuff. You may have the chocolate bar here and there, but ultimately, if it fits in your macros, that's fine. I think whereas like if you're not tracking and you have that chocolate bar, you think, oh shit, I had that chocolate bar earlier. Whereas like you're not seeing on paper how little effects that chocolate bar is going to do. So I think
Yeah,
that's
the
I think
damage.
that's actually a good thing where you can actually see that chocolate bar that you eat, after tea isn't doing you as much harm as you think. Whereas if you're tracking, you kind of see, well, to be fair, I've still got a ways to go in calories. I could probably have another chocolate bar. Maybe you should
Yeah, and
switch it
it's like
for, you know,
the damage you know you're doing is better than the damage you don't know you're doing. So
exactly.
if you can,
Perfect way to
yeah,
describe
if
it.
you can see, for example, say you've eaten 200 calories over, and I know this applies to like I've got a client of mine who's a night shift worker, and every night shift she'll be working, and I don't really know the ins and out of a night shift. I've never worked one, but
They work at
they
night.
they like, yeah. But do you have breakfast in the morning, or do you have breakfast before? Like, you know what I mean?
Can I
Because
just
you
go
go
off
into
topic?
bed.
Can I go off topic a little bit? Like breakfast, like the time you eat there is irrelevant. If that's your first meal, it's breakfast. You can eat there just before you go to bed. If you haven't eaten all day, that's breakfast, bro.
Yeah,
Like
but
the
then
clue is in the word break your
break
fast.
fast. Yeah, but then at the same time, is people that like eat throughout the whole day. They'll have their like their late night meal, and then they'll go home after a night shift before going back to sleep to wake up like midday, and then they'll like their last meal of the day will be their breakfast.
Right, I'm confused. No, anyway, just go on to the point you were making because
So like where,
uh,
for example, say you have 3 meals in a day normally, you might work a night shift and have a fourth because you're up for a longer period of time and you need that food to fuel you. And then I think that's where tracking your calories comes in handy, because if you know you're going to go over your calories on a night shift, for example, you can plan for that. You can allow that extra amount of food so you're not like starving and want to like cry throughout your night shift. And then when you eat the next day, when you've got like less on, you've got a normal day shift, for example, you can then manage your calories and you can create reductions in your calories on the days that you don't need them or feel like you need them. And that allows for the energy balance throughout the week. So if you was to eat all your calories in one specific day of the week, you've still eaten all your calories that day of the week. If you didn't eat for the rest of the week, you'd still be on your calorie target for that week. Is it optimal? No. That's
no,
why we spread it out, try and spread it out evenly throughout the week. But
yeah.
then if we know there's days where we're going to have higher amounts of calories, we can take some from the days where we're all right and we don't really feel the need to eat as much. We can take some days from there and keep that net balance, which is what we're looking for. And I think that comes back to the energy tracking from workouts. People then feel the need to earn back their calories just to eat a little bit more, when
Mm-hmm.
those days they can eat a little bit more and just take away from another day, and they don't have to work like an absolute numpty flying around their
Ultimately, I
house.
think you should just um try your like try your best to just trust the process and wouldn't like don't get caught up in the I need to track I need to add my activity in, I need to eat back my calories and all that. Just eat your calories. If you spill over on one day, it isn't gonna have a massive detriment to you. Whereas if you go in like, oh, I ate too much today, I'm gonna pull back the rest of the week. I think I think that encourages a negative mindset, like a binge starvation cycle. Maybe not to that extreme, but there's definitely that characteristic in people who, are really, really desperate to get the results they want. They might overthink it to the point where, oh, I spilled over today. Um, I'm gonna maybe not eat for maybe skip tomorrow's meal, and then that carries over into like a mentality then.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you should just, if you spill over, you've spilled over. Understand that you spilled over. Maybe understand why you spilled over. Take away that part of your life that made you spill over. If you've got chocolate in the house and you know that you can't just have that one little bit, and you like maybe just take that out and then slowly try and introduce that back in if you know that's an issue. So just be as consistent as possible and try to just get back on the wagon. I wouldn't try and counteract actions constantly, just because it will lead to a negative mindset, and it'll never leave you in a sort of at peace. You'll never be at
Mm.
peace with tracking nutrition. You'll always be on that yo-yo diet. Like you'll be up and down, that binge starve, and that's not really good for anyone. Like you're never really on a linear track to getting where you want to go, which is ultimately what people want.
But at the same time on that, if you, like when you said, if you've got a chocolate bar in the house and that's why you spill over, then maybe take the chocolate bar out. But if it's something like I touched on with that night shift that you know that you can't control, like you can't take that factor out of your hands where you're gonna like eat more on a certain day, then that's when you need to start making the changes. If
Yeah.
you've gone over and say you've eaten 50 calories over because you had an extra spoonful of rice, then you shouldn't worry about, oh, that's where I need to cut back 50 calories tomorrow. Like, in the grand scheme of things, 50 calories over the day is probably, I'll try to do some maths,
Oh, mate, it's
absolutely nout.
literally nothing.
But then at the same time, you can use that knowledge if you are going out for like a birthday weekend.
I was
You
just
know
about to
for a
touch on
fact
this.
you can then take back a little bit throughout the week because you know you're going to pig out. You're not going to be able to hit your calories bang on, but you shouldn't worry about too much about being 100%. It's about being the best at what we've got available. So if you know you're going to binge and like it's birthday weekend, you're going out for a nice meal, you got drinks on the cards, then maybe take a little bit throughout the week to be like, right, I know I'm going to have a bit of a shit weekend. I've kind of accepted that. I'll do a little bit of damage control, but I'm going to enjoy myself. And that's the ultimate goal. It's a birthday weekend. No one
This is what I
cares.
feel like.
Calories don't
I
count your
feel
birthday.
like I was just about to make this point. Like, if you know that you're going to have like a typical, let's call it an off-plan meal.
Cheat day.
Like, if you know that's going to be part of your day, maybe just backload carbs and fats throughout the day. If you know you're going to spill over later in the day, what's that cheap meal going to be? 700 calories, 1,000 calories?
Mm.
People do indulge, don't they, when they go out?
Oh,
So
I don't know, mind. I don't know.
maybe not for you. You like absolute beast, but like
You were
Joel,
going to call me
Joel
fat
will,
then?
Joel,
You were
Joel
going to
will,
call me fat on the street?
Joel will inhale 4,000 calories like no drama. So like,
You know, like those blue whales that come around
let's
and
not
just open their
include.
mouth in the
It's like
sea.
we're gonna touch on don't compare yourself. Definitely don't include anomalies like Joel when talking about yourself and your shit, because this boy can eat like.
Yeah, you know those whales that just open their mouth in the
what's
sea and
what's
just carry all the food out?
what's a cheat meal like? 700 calories, Joel. No, but like this is why I feel tracking is absolutely essential for people beginning in like who want to get into fitness and nutrition, because
Yeah.
you'll never understand what food does, and you'll never understand food until you track. And I think that you can only develop healthy habits and encouraging habits and reassuring habits from tracking food. I've
And
never
this,
worried about food since I started tracking. Like you, like I've become so intuitive with my eating where at this point I don't really track. If I'm dieting, maybe, but you get to a point where you kind of know and you can eyeball things and you kind of understand. Whereas, like, if I feel like I'm starting to fall off the wagon where I think I'm doing well, maybe I'll start to track a little bit more. But you develop that knowledge around food, which I think is essential. And it's so much
yeah,
more reassuring when you know about calories and macros. Like, it just is.
yeah, and I think like there is that certain bit of obsession period when you first start something. So, like when you first start training, you wanna do everything. You wanna track it. Like you wanna make sure you're measuring progress. You wanna do everything. Like when you start a diet, you're like, right, I gotta be 100% on point. But I think that period of that little bit of right, I want to get everything spot on, then means that you can relax later on when you've got that knowledge. So my training, I put a plan in place in my training. Do I follow it 100%? No. It provides the guidelines for my training. I know what I should be doing when I come in on that day, but I've got the point of training for 8 years that I know today I was supposed to deadlift. I got pissed on the weekend. I did Murph, and then I'm there, and I'm like, should I deadlift today? I've like ripped my hand open, boo. But all those are going to come in and put a factor in of why I didn't perform as well as I did. So I kind of know that that's going to be an issue. So I've just moved my training day over. Is it going to rock the world? No. It's literally just going to mean I perform a little bit better and get a bit more out of that session because I've been a little bit smarter with how I've managed my training. Did that
Yeah.
stop me from going out on the weekend? I was like, oh, I'm going to have a few going out. God. Did it mean I stopped out from having a few beers on the weekend? No, because we're in lockdown. We need a couple of beers. Like, I know I've drunk more than I normally would because, like, what else is it to
Economics,
do?
bro.
I do enjoy me a Corona. So if I was to try and resist the urge of, oh, right, I'm not going to drink this weekend because I've got a big deadlift session, when you can move, is like, not, you don't have to be 100% fixed in scale. But I think that early period of training where you fall in love with it, you fall in love with dieting, you fall in love with getting better, that addiction period, so to speak, is where you learn a lot of your training and a lot about the ins and outs of where you can maybe take back. And you come in, you have a shit day, you try and push through it, and you're like, oh, I had a shit day. You come in, you have a shit day again, you try and push through it. But then those shit days, you can like then start to be back, why did I have a shit day? It's happened a couple of times around this. Oh, this is probably why I'm having a shit day. I can take back a little bit
This is
and
why
maybe move the parts around when they come up again in the future.
I feel like self-education and getting to know yourself around your training journey is essential. And you're never going to, the more things you can put in place to achieve that, so getting familiar with nutrition, getting relatively knowledgeable about training, you'll always decrease that you'll always mitigate stress associated with training and eating if you know what to do. If you don't know what to do, you will always have that level of stress there. So
Yeah.
I would just get to grips with tracking and monitoring training, etc.
And that's why I've always been one for like, oh, if you want to do it, try and learn it yourself, you learn a bit more. But I think that's where having a PT comes into play, is because they've been there, they've got the experience, they can guide you through the process, because a PT shouldn't be permanent. Like, if you're with a PT for long periods of time because you're learning a new skill, say you want to go into weightlifting, you want to try something new, then by all means stay with a PT because they're going to teach you that. But if you're doing something and you've got the ins and outs, you know what you're doing, then that PT should have taught you enough to go and fly the nest, so to speak, and do your own training and monitoring. If you're programming, like, you need help with that, that's fine. But I think if you've got an in-person PT for a long period of time, you best be learning a lot from them that you can go take away, rather than just having them there. I know there's a whole accountability aspect as well, but that's why I feel like online programming is becoming a lot bigger, is because people know what they're doing. They just want to be told what to do and when they need to do it by. For me, I'm rubbish with my nutrition. I'd rather someone tell me, right, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, to keep me accountable for it.
Exactly. Like, as a coach, I still have coaches. I still have people program for me, just because of that accountability effort. Could I do it myself? Yeah, but sometimes it just does keep you a little bit more level-headed. And
Yeah.
it's another avenue of stress mitigation. If I've got to think about my program, where I couldn't be, I could have that stress taken away from me a little
Yeah.
bit.
And
I
and
do think
I
that
think,
you should have that sort of like encouragement to like move out, get your own house.
yeah, because it's like, if you're paying for a PT, you're paying to learn from them. It's
Yeah.
like you have a driving instructor. You don't have him sitting in the car once you pass 3 years' time, being like, is my clutch control all right? Like, oh, am I doing that 3-point turn? No, you've learned from him. You paid him for that short period of time to upskill you and get better at what you want to learn. You've then passed the test that qualifies you to be like, right, you can go do this on your own now. And then I think there's no passing the test period with a PT. It's just a gradual thing of, you might be a slower learner than someone else. Someone might come in and be like, right, I want to squat. I want to learn squat, press, pull. I want to do everything. And within 2 sessions, their movement mechanics are already spot on because they're just gifted in that movement. And then you'd be like, right, you don't need as long. We'll make sure that it weren't just a one-off. We'll keep like seeing your weakness areas. And then you might have someone for 12 weeks that comes in, and each week they're like, oh, this is still so foreign to me. Like, what's a hip hinge? But
I
then
still
over a period of time, you learn.
I still think that coaching element is still essential to some extent, because like you said with the driving, right? Just as a little caveat, if my driving instructor saw me drive now, he'd probably have an heart attack. Like, like they say, you don't learn to drive until you pass your test. Yeah, you pick up bad habits sometimes, right?
I was about to say that then.
You pick up bad habits, so it's nice to have someone there as like a consult to go to and just kind of just check if things are still ticking over the way they should be, and if not, reassess, get back on the horse and fix and relearn, or just touch up on things you might have forgot, or just get rid of those bad habits, which I think is a good thing.
But that's where I think online coaching is coming in a lot nowadays,
Yeah,
because you don't need that hour of face-to-face time if
you
you're
don't need to sit your
like,
driving test again.
no, you just need someone to say, look, you need to check your mirrors a little bit better. And that could be that, right, you've got a little bit lazy on that brace. You're like, you can do a better job there. And then they
Yeah,
go, yeah,
yeah. To be
to
fair,
be
could.
honest, yeah. And then they do it. And then there we go. You don't need to pass your test again. You've just been like, I know for a fact, my driving instructor watched me be like, mirror, mirror signal. And he'd be like, give it some gas. And once you just have that little bit of telling, you're like, right, I've been a bit lazy. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's where I think you come in, and then you might say, look, can you have a look over this for me? I feel like my squat's a little bit off. And then you go, yeah, you're bracing like an absolute numpty. Oh, yeah, you told me how to do that. I just got a bit lazy with it. Then that's the problem solved. And that's where the accountability aspect comes in of online coaching, is that weekly check-in, those like little WhatsApp conversations you have. And I feel like that's what people are missing with live classes at the minute, is you've got that one-to-one aspect. You can have those little tweaks on an individual basis, and you can get a lot more. Whereas like live coaching, you're literally just like not getting any learning out of it. You're just there for a sweat.
Mm-hmm.
But they all have their place as well, because sometimes the group aspect of people coming in all together is going to push a lot of people on. So it's about finding that balance of flying the nest, but also understanding there's still a long way to go before you become a master. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
So we had some burning questions after the last podcast. We'll touch on a few of those now. Well, I don't know if they were burning questions. Kind of like smoldering, kind of like warm questions. we had questions. We actually had questions from the last podcast. So,
yeah. Hang on, can we just summarize on what we just said? 'Cause I feel like there was a lot. So, activity trackers.
Shite, get rid of them. No, like
use them to track your steps, and if you want to feel like to burn a bit more calories for a good Instagram pic, push it, but don't eat them back. Set your calorie target as an estimate, learn from that, and bring on
assess weekly.
Little changes that come on weekly. Don't worry if you go over your calories on one day. No one become fat from overeating on one single day. It was the period of doing it for a long time. And then, yeah, I think that's where we covered up to.
And sort your driving out.
Yeah, and mirror signal.
Mirror signal always. Yeah. Joel's got the questions written down because he's really organized. I just expect to sit down and remember the questions. I inevitably didn't.
So the first one is going to be. Hang on, I'm going to nip for a pee, so you can just cut this bit out.
Right.
So, hello, we're back. That was a little ad break, but we haven't got an advert yet. So
it'll just be like, Joel, what you'll see there is, Joel, I need a pee, and then back into the conversation.
Yeah, like if anyone wants to fill that ad break spot of about 15 seconds, hit us up at socials.archivepodcast@gmail.com. We're accepting anything.
Doesn't know our email, look.
It is.
It's archivepodcast.social, isn't it?
No. Oh, Dan, you're dreadful,
I don't even know.
Most unprepared blog.
This podcast.
Right. So I feel like the first question, and it's going to lead us good into another topic, is what does your training week look like? And I think this one was more directed for me because I turn out to be quite the sporadic clout lifter on times, and that doesn't paint the full picture. So for me, my training week looks pretty much identical each week. So it might change on a block-to-block basis, but the majority of my training at the minute stays the same. So I will have I will train 4 to 5 days a week, depending on where I am. If I'm in season, it'll be 4 gym training days, 2 field in a game. But for the time being, we'll talk about my training as it is now. I train 4 days a week, usually a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I'll have a Wednesday off, which might be like a yoga ability session, something like that. But on a Monday, I'll do my heavy lowers, which will look pretty much similar. It will be a heavy deadlift into some single leg knee dominant stuff with some core, and then a bit more of targeted accessories to my weaknesses. So I'm working on posterior chain strength. So I'll do my Nordics, and I will do a lot of hamstring work. My Tuesday is my main upper session, so it will be heavy bench, because like everyone loves to bench heavy. Then it will be some like shoulder health stuff, working on scap retraction and external rotation strength. Then I will do some single arm shoulder pressing, some pull-ups, some heavy rows, and then usually like a bit of a pump house circuit where I'll do some like AMRAP work, just getting a lot of volume through, trying to grow my little girly frame. Then Wednesday, if I train, it might be like a yoga ability session, but otherwise it'll probably be me lazing about the house, doing not a lot and catching a tan in this beautiful weather. Thursday then will be my first full body session. So at the moment, that will be the 20 rep squats, where I come in and absolutely murder myself with some squats, do a little bit of targeted hamstring and core weaknesses, and then upper body, heavy shoulder press into some more pump. Friday will be pretty much the same, where I do some like lighter glute bridge with some core accessories, and then some full body, like upper body pump. And then Saturday, if I train, it's start to be my integration to weightlifting, because I ain't done that in a while. So I like to throw some weightlifting movements in, nothing too heavy, just greasing the groove a little bit. And that's my training week done. And each block will maybe change its focus. At the minute, I'm going for a bit more of a winning the hypertrophy phase. So there's a lot of volume in there. But as that might come into the season, that volume might decrease and be substituted with a bit more running, to make sure I'm topping up my cardio base. And if I'm in season, is usually just a bit more strength and power stuff. So the reason why people ask me is because I will do weird stuff. So I'll come in and I will throw zerchers from the floor to my knees to overhead, stuff like that. And I've only recently started doing stuff like that because I've kind of earned the right to do it. So my training for the past 7 years has been pretty much doing the basics really well. So I squat, I deadlift, I press, I pull, I chin, and then I flutter in some accessories. And that's been my training for 7 years. I will do weird stuff because it's something fun. I like pushing myself. So the half marathon was something that I done because I decided I want to do the 1 ton challenge and I want to run a half marathon. Why not add them together? Because it's a bit more fun for me. I hate running. So adding something before it, making it a bit of a challenge, is something that motivates me and I find fun. Do I recommend people just randomly do it? No. But at the same time, if you've earned the right and you kind of manage your training a bit smarter leading up to it and after it, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem. It's like you have a bad eating day, you just kind of get back on track. I don't do these every single day. I do them. I plan for them. My next one is going to be 200 kilos on squats for 100 reps in a day. I'm planning for it. That's why I'm building a bit more volume in my squat. I don't just jump in and do weird stuff because it's going to get me better. I do it because I like challenging myself and doing something weird.
Ultimately, a point you can draw from that is I see a question. I see questions thrown around, not just on my socials, but other people's socials. People are really interested in what people are doing. Like, what are your current macros like? What are you eating currently? Like, what's your training like? Ultimately, I think you should just steer away from trying to draw comparisons from other people. Obviously, there's going to be some, you're obviously going to draw inspiration from other people, but I don't think you should try and compare your situation or your current state of training or nutrition or what have you with another individual, just because it can ultimately lead to disappointment, or it can just get in the way of like you're different to that individual. your ways of, even if that person is that way you want to be, you may have to start different to that person. It's like when you see footage of bodybuilders train, yeah. You look at the sheer mass of those individuals. If you want to look like that, you're going to see what their training looks like at that moment in time when they look like that, and you're going to try and emulate that. Whereas, like, you got to ask yourself the question: is, did they get to that position from training like that? Probably not. Their training is constantly evolving. They are training from day one that looks like completely different to what their training looks like at that point. So there's that element of comparing yourself to individuals. There's obviously especially with social media, there's a big emphasis on looking or performing a certain way for an Instagram post, which is of like, I think Joel wanted to touch on this comparison because we had a discussion about the Holly Hagen thing, and that, which we said we were going to touch on again this week because there's a discussion there. So Joel, why didn't you touch on because Joel raised a good point about this, so I'll let Joel.
So, comparisons in the fitness industry, each week people will see a highlight reel of someone's like Instagram. So you might follow all your favorite bodybuilders and they're killing it week on week. Their Instagram posts show them in mental nick, but these people are the ones that are dedicating their life to being in better shape. Now, if your goal is to just better your health, shouldn't your progression focus on that? So if you were getting better, that is the main like take one point. So say you run a 5K in 20 minutes and you do it in 19 minutes, you've got better. But at the same time, if you run a 5K in 50 minutes and you do it next week in 49, you've also got better. And should you compare between that 20-minute 5K time and that 50-minute 5K time? You could be two totally different people in different parts of your life. One might be a well-established runner. The one might be someone doing their first couch to 5K, and they're like, "Oh, I've never completed a 5K before, and I've knocked a minute off it the second time doing it." Whereas someone might train for months to knock time off their 5K. It's like when I run my old half marathon, it was like 2.5 hours of like agonizing crawling, watching several old ladies just stroll past me at lightning speed. And I'm like, oh. But then I looked at our buddy Elliot Kipchoge, who ran the 2-hour marathon. I'm just going to get his like splits up now. So 2 hour.
While Joel's doing that, I'll just raise another point. Is like, the reality is the people you see on Instagram, as much as people don't talk about it, that is a business. Like, in social media, people know now that social media is a cash making machine. Yeah, an influencer or somebody you follow with a relatively large following isn't going to post anything that may make them out to be anything less than their best, because the best sells. They want you to look at them and pretty much buy into anything that they'll endorse, because it's ultimately a business. I'm not saying everyone's out to get you cash or whatever, but everyone posts their best photos on Instagram. Like, anyone who tells you they didn't take 7 photos and uploaded the one best photo.
700, bro.
Exactly. Just like on shit that like just
yeah. By the way, Elliot Kipchoge ran a 4.5 minute mile basically for 26 miles. I ran what was a 12-minute mile in Murph the other day, and I was like, that was rapid. But on this comparison,
you want to see some real speed?
Tell me how fast you are. But when you look at someone's Instagram, they do things to make you buy into them. So that everyone on social media at the minute has got a platform to make sure that they're promoting themselves. So everyone wants to stand out in a certain way. So whether that be that they do like they're in ridiculous shape and they're preaching they can get you in shape. Just because they're in shape doesn't mean they know how to get people in shape. So you compare like a personal trainer, you see one that's in really good shape and one that's in average shape. That doesn't determine how good a coach they are, but it's what people see on Instagram and how they determine what looks good. So they will be there and they'll see this guy's got a six pack, this guy isn't. I'll go to him because I want a six pack. And that's how it goes. So when people post on social media, they try and make their best to ensure that you buy into those. This might be someone coming up with a fancy new complex exercise of doing like a burpee broad jump into a bicep curl just because it looks good for Instagram. Does it work? Like, you may as well just do a bicep curl and a burpee separately if you want like to get the best out of them. But does it sell? Yeah, at the same time. So when you've got people that are pushing their own agenda for profit reasons, and it is, then you shouldn't really compare your day-to-day to those, because you're in a totally different stage of your life where you just want to get better for you. You want to monitor your progress on your progress, not where other people are.
There's,
So I think the take-home messages for the comparisons between people is people are going to progress at different rates. People are going to be at different stages of their progression pathway. Some people are going to be totally new starting out. Some people might be well-seasoned resistance trained individuals. But then at each stage, you should monitor your progress on if you're getting better and not look into where other people are. Yeah, set yourself a target, for example. Say you want to run, you've seen someone run a 2-hour marathon and you're like, I want to train my life to get better at 2-hour marathon. You've got to realize that they've dedicated so much time to running that 2-hour marathon that is it feasible for you? If it is, and you want to do it, go do it by like every means, but realize that if you're watching someone that's in ridiculous shape and you like, I want to get to where he is, remember that you're in a different place and your training is going to look a lot different. And you should worry on about if you're getting better, not am I getting closer to the person I aspire to be.
yeah,
If that
eh,
makes any sense.
yeah, I get you. And we got to ultimately, that person's livelihood depends on their image, and if they can sell their image or their performance, that's basically it's the be or end all for that person. So that's their career. If you look at it from that perspective, if you're just a recreational trainer, there's no reason why you should compare yourself to somebody when that person's like actual livelihood depends on their level of fitness or their shape.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm sure if they compare to you in your field of work and they got into your field of work as a hobby and compared themselves to you, they'd be the ones, the shoe would be on the other foot. They'd be the ones like, oh, they are at such a high level of that. I'm already here. Whereas like it's completely relative to what you're doing.
Yeah, you shouldn't judge like your progression pathway on something that someone else has done because you're in different stages. So
Hmm.
that's like the take home message is if you want to get better at something, focus on you're getting better and don't worry about where other people are in relation to you as long as you're getting better. That's the case in like take home point for you is you've got better.
It'll
Celebrate
already,
your wins.
yeah, it'll already blur the line of what you need to do, really.
Mm, right.
So
Next
ultimately, the
question.
concluding point: don't compare yourself to others.
No, no, don't. Right. This one is for our buddy Dan. Dan, why do you love Zurchers so much?
Right, I don't favour the Zercher over any other squat variation. Like I say, do I do Zerchers with every one of my clients? No, I don't. People see a lot of the people see me do Zercher. Like, you say that, but I don't.
Yeah, all right, Dan.
And I'm not getting touchy. I'm not getting touchy, right? But ultimately, the population I work with, or people see that I work with, like most in the gym, are mixed martial arts fighters. So my rationale behind using the Zercher is because I like that anterior loaded, you know, at portion of the movement, and I'm just basically just trying to mitigate compressive forces on the spine because these guys, they're in a contact sport. They've got to go. They've got to be fresh for their next role, and I'm just trying to improve. My role is to effectively allow them to do their sport for as long as possible, as optimal as possible. So anything that may act as another thing to kind of manage is ultimately just going to get in the way. Do I use back squats with MMA fighters too? Yeah, I do sometimes.
Ooh, I do.
But like I like Zerchers because like, you know, the nature of MMA, when you ever loaded from the back, or you know, you
When
can
I'm
look at it
carrying you
from
in the
that way.
rear naked choke, bro.
Yeah, but you're on the ground. Like
No,
obviously
you're
you
not.
need to
You're
develop like that, but that anterior sort of like that motion, it kind of just replicates that a little bit better. If you look at it at a minute factor, but ultimately it's just to decrease spinal load and keep them fresh for their next roll or their next sparring session. That's why I like Zerchers. And a lot of people don't have the prerequisite mobility in their hips and their knees, or in their ankles, sorry, to perform a back squat, because just the mechanics of the movement, and the bar, where the bar is placed, anything anteriorly loaded typically allows you to get into a better squat pattern. So that's why you see me start from maybe a goblet squat, or you know, and then maybe progress onto a back squat where they've got that prerequisite ankle mobility, hip mobility, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Load
Anterior,
within the parameters that they can like lift, and then
yeah.
mitigate any outside stress that might hinder their sport.
My
So
question
MMA
for
fighters.
my question for this person is, what's your beef with me using Zerchers?
I don't think there was any
I'm
beef, bro.
kidding.
I
I'm
think
completely kidding. What's wrong with Zerchers, bro?
I
My
think it's
middle
people
name
who
is
can't actually.
Zercher.
I think it's people who can't actually hold the bar there because they you've got to be a certain type of human to Zercher.
Yeah.
Dan, the question is, do you Zercher?
No. I don't. Just
Practice
because I
what
don't
you
like
preach,
it.
Dan.
I don't like. You know, it's all about that enjoyment factor. I touch on this enjoyment factor all the time, and that like, if you don't want to do something, don't do it. Like, if my client doesn't want to Zercher, I won't make him Zercher. Like I said, I've had this discussion about exercise selection before, right? I don't, I don't favor exercise just because there's obviously going to be. You're obviously going to have someone who doesn't want to do an exercise on occasion. If they don't want to do it, then I'm just going to not. If they don't perform well in that exercise, I'm not going to make them do it. If they do perform well in that exercise and they don't mind doing it, then let's do it, because ultimately you're going to get the most out of that. But yeah, I like it just
Yeah.
because it just has that. It's just a little bit nicer. Do you get me? But another consideration is, which I see a lot of people. This is a completely off topic, but relating to the anterior loading stuff, is a consideration that I haven't really seen put out there is, with the lack of equipment people are having lockdown, they're using dumbbells and kettlebells and they're doing squats with them. A lot of that is anterior loaded like this, yeah? So if you look at the way that is actually supported, you're supporting that basically through anterior delt. You support it through the front of your body effectively. And when you press, if you look at that rate, to avoid rounding over through the shoulders, getting that scapular wing in, getting that upper cross syndrome, that is commonly associated with pressing as well. So that is mainly associated with pressing, sorry. So if you're pressing more than you're pulling, you're going to develop that postural imbalance. Whereas where you're not accounting for another bit of anterior sort of like workload is through those goblet squats. So maybe another thing I would say is just factor pulling volume in to mitigate that as well, which is something that came into my mind as we were discussing that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to bring up on the next topic. The next topic of discussion was why you've got to consider a lot of other things now you're stuck at home training. So, like Dan said, you might only have access to a barbell, like a dumbbell or a kettlebell. You might not even have access to a barbell. So, if you're front loaded, you're going to have that rounding forward. Like, I know for people on Spotify can't see, but if you're rounding forward, your shoulders coming forward, like that desk-based posture you're associated with, like working on a computer, that's going to come into play if we're front loading. We're coming into that position more and more. So one of the problems is that we haven't got the equipment to train a lot of back at
I've
home.
got the facilities for that big man.
No, you ain't got your lat pull downs. You might not even have a pull up bar. You might not have heavy enough to simulate some rows. So what would be some exercises like 3 exercises that you could list off right now that would be beneficial for improving that pull-in to push-in ratio.
Any pulling movement, really.
Yeah.
As long as you can pull. So if you can get hold of bands are ideal. If you can set up maybe a supine row or, with, a table or something, that is gonna benefit you.
Yeah. So the things
Even,
I've been...
or if you can't, just mobilize the area. There's things you can do, like Y's, T's and W's. You can make those relatively hard just with your hands.
So the things that I've seen
Isometrics.
is, for pulling, is try and, like, a towel is going to be your friend. So if you can perform like an isometric row where you're in that position where you're squeezing back on the towel, you're going to generate a lot of like pulling force from that position. There's things like reverse planks out there that I've been seeing advertised, where you put your like elbows on a chair, your feet up on a chair, and your belly's facing the ceiling, and you're holding yourself in that position. So it's like you're not gripping onto anything. Your elbows are digging into two surfaces to hold yourself up in that retracted position. There's things like door pull-ups that have been 50-50. Like if you're a heavier individual with
you've got
weak
a
structural
hollow
integrity
door
of doors, yeah, probably not. But like Dan said, if you got your bands, make sure you're getting a lot of rowing in. I've done a video on my Instagram at joelharris.pt.
And if you do buy bands, make sure you bath with them.
Yeah,
make sure you take a bath with
love
them.
your bands. Love your bands, and they'll love you back. But no, there's a video on my thing about like shoulder health, which is like all external rotation and getting in those like scap retractions. So make sure you're doing a lot of that if you are finding yourself doing a lot of pressing, because that's
Make sure you keep that mobilizing element in as well, because effectively first you need to mobilize the area to develop stability in that area. So if you want to fix that postural imbalance, you need to mobilize your anterior portion of your body. So you need to mobilize the front of your body, mobilize the pecs, get used to being in that position, and then strengthen the areas that kind of allow you to stay in that position. So yeah.
Right. I think that's pretty much us done for all the questions. We've had a couple more.
We had one question. Don't forget about we had a question in the YouTube comments about the Thor and Eddie Hall fight.
Thor, Eddie Hall training considerations for that one. That was
Eeyore.
Eeyore, yeah, my favorite. We got Brendan Fraser and Eeyore.
Matt Fraser. Oh man, I'm so embarrassed about that. Because somebody like, the thing is, I posted a picture of myself, with curtains. Somebody said I look like Brendan Fraser, and that was so close to the podcast that Brendan Fraser was in the mind. And Fraser, obviously, Matt Fraser. And I'm not big into my CrossFit anyway. I know Matt Fraser is, because he's just an impressive freak of a bloke. But Brendan just came into my mind. So that's my rebuttal on that. So stop taking the mick out of me, because it hurts my feelings, all right?
Carry on doing it. But we've got Eddie Hall versus EO coming up now in the strongman boxing world. So it's gone from KSI versus Logan Paul to Eddie Hall versus EO.
Don't ever draw that comparison.
But basically,
they were athletes at that point.
The question that we had was, what does their training look like now that they're prepping for a boxing match? And I think, without knowing their coach and whatever, but knowing individuals who love to strength train, they're probably still going to have a high element of strength training in there. Is it going to be their progressive strength that they're used to, of like focusing on getting stronger and stronger? No, it's going to be, let's do as much damage limitation as possible to our strength, because at the end of the day, Thor might go back to strongman, Eddie Hall might not. So they haven't really got that competitive, like, Eddie Hall hasn't got that competitive element there where he needs to get back and win titles, whereas Thor might, even though he said he's not doing it anymore. But there's still going to be a high degree of strength training, but the volume that they've taken away from getting better, they're going to apply to making sure that their technical and tactical stuff is up there with boxing. So their fitness is going to try and be progressed, as well as a lot of it's going to be technical work on how to punch.
The differences with these guys is, typically with an S&C protocol, you'd always want to get the athlete stronger. As we said in the last podcast, strength is never a weakness. If you're in a strength sport, you're all relatively going to have a massive degree of strength. These guys are stepping into the realm of a completely different sort of output now. This is an extended bout of movement. They're going to be, their engines are going to play a massive role in this. Their aerobic capacity is going to play a massive role in this. Obviously, the events in strongman may sort of require a little bit of aerobic capacity, but not to the degree of what these guys are going to display. So I would just see a massive transition from strength, not a massive transition, sort of like a shift in goal. As with anything, their training is now going to be more catered towards making those muscles more efficient at performing exercise or movement across an extended period of time. So their aerobic capacity is going to have to increase. So because they don't know shit about boxing, yeah, they are relatively rubbish at boxing. They need to pick up that technical skill. So they need to develop that fitness element to such an extent where they're going to be able to perform that technical skill without any detriment to that skill. Because if they haven't got that engine base, they could be, they could have relatively good technique in the later rounds. Their technique is going to look like dog shit. So you need that prerequisite aerobic capacity. So ultimately, I just see them putting a little bit more engine work and capacity work in there. So they might start building up an off-foot, low-impact base of fitness while they're kind of doing their, combat-based stuff. So they'll have their technical sessions. They might do a number of minutes per week on the watt bike to build up that sort of like central base of fitness. So you've got different avenues of aerobic capacity. So you've got your central fitness, which is sort of like your oxygen uptake and your heart, all to do with that sort of like thing. And then you've got the peripheral adaptation. So you've got the in the muscle adaptation to aerobic and sort of like that turnover of energy. So from, the lungs to the muscle, like the oxygen, the reuptake and reuse of oxygen sort of thing. So you'll see probably, if you're a linearizer, they start off, they don't box. They make a switch from strength training, reduce the volume from strength training to like a minimum effective dose protocol. Maybe this is what it looks like. So then they'll move on to they'll do a massive block of building that technical competency. They'll work on that. They'll hammer technical competency. They'll develop that prerequisite fitness via off foot, sort of like low impact, building that central level of fitness. And then they might make that transition when they're going into like closer to their fight day. They might make that transition to more metabolic conditioning based stuff where they start to integrate that technical sort of like element of boxing in with that aerobic fitness. This is how I would program it. I think it's pretty consistent across pretty much every practitioner in the field that they might even try and introduce this. So it's pretty much concurrent. They'll keep everything in, but the doses of each will change. So the doses of strength may be a little bit more present in the start. Will it be present towards the end? Yeah, but just in smaller doses. Will off cardio be in there? Yeah, smaller doses towards the end. Will metabolic conditioning be there in the start? Yeah, just maybe in a little bit less of a dose. So you'll see them make that transition from strength to boxing pretty much.
Yeah, because like if you're into strength, you've got a passion for lifting heavy stuff. So if someone was to tell them you ain't going to lift any weights during this time because you're already strong enough to do it, they're going to tell them where to go because their goal is to enjoy getting strong, and like their main love and passion is probably strength training. That's why they're world's strongest man. You know what I mean? So each one of these are top end athletes, so they can handle a greater amount of stress than most people. So they like each training week, you have so much stress you can recover from. And that stress is just going to be distributed differently from start to finish. Their stress was all dedicated towards getting stronger. Now, they're going to drop a lot of that volume from stress and put it into other areas to make sure that they actually fit the box. So they're going to do a lot of the tactical stuff might take up a lot of their stress in the early phases. Then that will start to come down. They'll increase more stress into other areas. And stress is what drives adaptation. So they're going to apply a certain amount of stress to make sure they adapt and get better. And linearly, it's going to look like everything's going to be included in there, but doses are going to vary to make sure that they're getting the adaptation that they want at that specific time. So when they come to box, they're fit enough to do however many rounds it is with great technical competency, with the ability to try and win a fight.
So you'll have that vertical integration of fight specific intervention. So you'll have the boxing tactical side coming in, the technical elements that are mixed in with the physiological. So you'll develop all physiological capacities, you'll develop technical skill, you'll develop fitness, you'll develop strength, you'll develop power, all that, and then you'll find a way then to integrate that towards the end and kind of put it's like a puzzle. It starts off, you might start over there, and then ultimately it all comes together.
Start at the corners, build your way in. That's how you do puzzles.
Oh, mate, we are smashing these like metaphors today.
Yeah.
The
So each
driving.
corner is a different adaptation. So you've got your strength, you've got your fitness, you've got your tactical, and then you build into that and complete the picture. And then you've got a lovely boxing match. And you're going to put some PVA glue over the top, make sure it's all stuck together, put it in a frame, stick it on the wall, happy.
Who does that with a puzzle, bro?
Loads of people.
I don't know anyone that does that with a puzzle.
Oh, right. Well, on that note.
Right. I think we should, we've energy, this is what I want to bring up, right? Joel called me out on Instagram for my rating on this energy drink, right? The Noco Limon de Sol. And fair enough. I think we should add these in every week, like a little energy drink review, because people love an energy drink. Fitness folk love a 0-calorie beverage, right? Beverage. I said that relatively to what's out there and energy drinks of, coming from a flavor perspective, I can't give this a 10 when there's another lemon beverage out there that's 0-calorie, relatively high caffeine content. I can't give that a 10 when I rated that one a 9.5. Or you look at the 3D energy drinks, right? We're not endorsed by 3D, even though you might think that we are, because I like 3D. But those I feel like are the gold standard of energy 0-calorie beverages. So I can't give this a 10. If we look at it from a Nocco perspective, yeah, man, this is a 10. This is the best one in the line. But I just think that they have that little sort of BCAA lingering aftertaste.
So my review of the Nocco is I much prefer a smaller can.
I agree.
I feel like drinking a heavy volume of fluid before you train, like you've got to chug down a monster before you train. It ain't ideal. Don't sit well on my stomach. So that's why I like to come up with a Nocco, smaller, 330ml instead of the 500. Sits easier on the stomach. Amazing taste of the lemon de sol. Tastes like a San Pellegrino lemonade. Just a little bit less sharp.
It's got that peppery lemon zing to it. It is actually quite good.
It's not as sharp as a San Pellegrino lemonade where you go, but it's still got that there.
Yeah,
it's still got that there. And for me, 180 milligram of caffeine in a small can, you don't find that anywhere else. Hence why lemon is my favorite energy drink, hands down.
This is your favorite one, hands down. That's bold. That's the first that I've heard that is on the podcast. Have you tried the lemon ring?
I have, and I like the rain drinks, but they do give me that taste of artificial sweetener.
Yeah, that's what I will say. I don't get that with these.
My review, hands down, my favorite energy drink, Lemon de Sol Nocco.
What do you think? We'll just have a little fade out discussion. What do you think about people who shotgun pre-workout, just to the dome?
That's the only way to take it.
See, there's an argument there for, you need to mix it with water so the ingredients partition properly.
No, try scoop, bro.
I should have a clump of pre-workout then just go in.
Yeah.
I want a pre-workout to hit me like that. So if I chug that with a decent dose of water, I'm up, bro. My body I feel like peeling my face off.
right, I think for me, it's got that like nostalgia feeling of, you know, when you put it in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. When you were down the fault, you'd scoop it in, and you'd literally do it before you go in for your heavy squat. So you'd like smash that down. You'd swill it round with a little bit of like Monster, and they go cheeks will blow up. But then you've got
It's like a
that,
rabid dog squatting.
yeah, and then you've got that, you've got it there, right there and then. But does it kick in straight away? Probably not. But that, you know, that feeling of every is there, and then you chuck on a bit of Roy Jones
Nice.
Jr. Can't be touched, and then you go under that bar, you'll headbutt it a couple of times, and then rack it out.
Don't compare yourself to others. Do not partake
I
in
don't
this.
condone. No, I don't condone dry scooping. But I think
Yeah,
that's the end of
I think
the
that
archive
concludes
number
the.
2.
This is, yeah, archive
I
number
don't know how
3.
long this episode's been, but
I think it's just been about an hour and 15. I'll probably cut out that bit where you just went for a wee, put an ad break in there, like.
we'll be back.
We'll be back. But yeah,
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We're now on Spotify
and Apple Podcasts. We've had the
Apple
go ahead from
Podcasts.
Apple. We're on Apple Podcasts now. So, episode 1 will be uploaded to Apple Podcasts probably this week.
Yeah,
along
I think
with
it's on
episode
there.
2. It is on there.
I think it's on there.
I'm checking.
So,
look at me.
We will put our links. So there's a link in the bio to, at the minute, the YouTube, both our personal socials, as well as our Spotify podcast. We will update and put in a link for the Apple Podcast one now. So upon today listening, it should be live. So if you head over to the link in the bio, you will find more podcasts and more stuff about us there.
And if you've just come across us on YouTube by the stroke of God, all our socials are linked in the description. We are instagram.com/archive.podcast. And then joelharris.pt, Dan Evans PT. Give us a follow, support the podcast. Promise we're really interesting blokes. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy.
Yeah. And if you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section down below on YouTube, or drop us a message on any of our socials, and we shall try and feature them in a podcast. If we haven't answered your question yet, there might be a reason why we haven't done that, and we might have something in the pipeline. So make sure, if you've answered a question, we will get back to you and we will answer it at some point. It just might be in a more in-depth format, or it might be as one of the little Q&As that we do at the end.
Yeah, because if we get a question that we feel like deserves its own segment of the podcast, not that we are favouring questions, but if we have questions that we can kind of summarise and like answer like relatively briefly, but sometimes we get kind of like strokes of like, you know, we get like, oh, we can go off on a tangent there. We can talk about this. You know, we can build a larger discussion around some of the questions you guys ask us. So yeah, we're not ignoring you. We just probably have something else there. So happy. That's episode 2.
On that note, go enjoy your bank holiday, have a couple of beers, and don't worry about maybe eating them back tomorrow. Happy.
At us. See you in the next one. See ya.